Thank you all. I'm going to start with a quick invocation and pledge, and then we'll get this thing started. So if you'll stand with me, please. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together in person. And Lord, we thank you for those that are here via the Zoom. We just thank you for giving us the options to do that and to join together as a club once again. We pray for those in leadership positions in our country and in service of our community. We pray for our president and his wife, Lord, as they're battling the coronavirus now. We just ask that you keep watch over them and keep watch over everyone who's dealing with that at this time. We pray for those that are not with us this morning, that you would be with them. And we just ask that you always keep watch over all of us and those who watch out for us. We pray that you would put it on our hearts to do what we can to serve our community better, help those around us, and make Lake Highlands a better place. We ask all these things in your son's name. Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I have to keep getting my phone open because I couldn't get the printer to work at the house last night. I see that we've got several of our recent members with us this morning. Do we have any guests other than our speaker this morning? Any guests? No guests. All right. Well, we'll make a quick recognition of some of our newer members, and if I've missed somebody that walked in and I didn't catch a face, my apologies. Some of you we've recognized on the Zoom before, but I thought it'd be nice for those who are in person to put some faces and names together. Raymond Morrow is with us here for the first time this morning, as is Drew Solomon, seated at the table with him. And then over there with Mr. Torres and Brad is Mac Harrison. So welcome and thank you guys for joining the club and joining us this morning. Quick announcements. I don't have a lot on the list, but I will ask one of our Oktoberfest representatives to hop up and come give us a quick pitch about the Oktoberfest at OHB tomorrow. Mr. Holmes. Let me get over here socially distant.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Exchange Club. Oh, this pulpit. Oh, bully, 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 bully. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. For those that haven't been checking your newsletter, tomorrow is our Oktoberfest Microfest over at Oak Highlands Brewery. There are plenty of opportunities to volunteer and help support this event. Oktoberfest is a 3-weekend run by Oak Highlands to kind of celebrate the season, and they have been graciously asking nonprofits such as ourselves to come help support their event and raise some funds for each of those nonprofits individually. Our weekend is this weekend. We will be preparing and selling food on site all day to raise some funds in a very microfest environment, but should be a lot of fun. There is a sign-up genius that has been pushed out through several emails and newsletters. I encourage you to sign up for shifts. Shifts are available starting at 10 a.m. and basically run all day until 10 p.m. in various activities, whether that's cooking food, setup, food prep, cashiering, takedown. So sign up for at least 1 2-hour shift. I know we all have sports cranking back up and other activities on Saturday. Should be a beautiful day. And I know everybody wants to spend a little time probably outside with family and friends. But it's 2 hours and it goes to support this club to raise some funds that we desperately need to maintain our programs of service within the Lake Highlands community. So would appreciate the members' support in addition to talking to your neighbors, telling them to come on out. Enjoy the day with us, help support Oak Highlands Brewery and help support the Exchange Club of Lake Highlands. Once again, Sign Up Genius, if you have any questions, please see me over here at the table. I'll be more than happy to show you that link. And like I said, encourage you to sign up. And if there are any questions, I'll take them now or over the Zoom, and be happy to respond to any of those in terms of what the program looks like. Excellent. Okay, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, tomorrow's an important date, an important event. We've got some really good momentum for the club in terms of, continuing our programs of service, as Mark mentioned, coming off of the spring/summer benefit auction. That was a great event for us in terms of bringing some money in that's going to help fund our scholarships and fund our community grants when we do that in the spring. But this is going to be an important addition and component to that. I mean, we've got a great opportunity to do something meaningful and significant. On your tables are sign-up sheets to volunteer or to donate. And so we're asking the members, if you haven't already, this was also in the newsletter, to make a contribution to help kind of cover the costs of our food and drinks that we're providing and selling at the event tomorrow, so that the money that we make selling those items is what comes into the club. So you can sign up for a shift on the sign-up sheet there. Just put down a 2-hour time slot that you're available, and we'll add that to the sign-up genius. Or if you want to make a contribution, we'll get those sheets to Doug and Tina and just charge your credit card. So much appreciated. Any help we can get on that would be great. It is going to be a long day. The event runs from 12 to 10. And I think we've got shifts running from 10 until sometime after 10 when we're finishing up our cleanup. So get out there and help out. Like Mark said, it's going to be a nice day. It should be a lot of fun. They've had 2 of them so far, and by all accounts, they're really fun events. I'll plug the golf tournaments coming up one more time. Family Compass on October 15th. Check out their website if you're interested in signing up, playing in that tournament. It's a lot of fun. Lake Highlands Wildcat Club Cat Classic is on October 12th at Firewheel. Their sign up is on the Wildcat Club Membership Toolkit website. And any other announcements, anything coming up that I've missed, failed to talk about? Mr. Barone.
So we're in the early innings of the scholarship committee. The interviews will occur early next year. So we're in the first inning, but if you've been involved in the past and you'd like to continue this year, I'll reach out to the people who have done it previously. If you're a new member, be interested in participating. It involves being at the high school, either in person, which occurred 2 years ago, or virtually, which occurred last year. We'll just have to see what the world looks like by early next year to help in the review of applications and then the interviews of our student scholars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Yes, if you're interested in serving on that scholarship committee, it's a lot of fun, really, really rewarding. And it's a big part of what we do, especially in the second half of our club year. So get in touch with Mario if you're interested in doing that. And if there are no other announcements, I'll invite our Vice President of Programs, Michael Bailey, to the podium to introduce our speaker.
Good morning, Lake Highlands.
Morning. Morning.
We are grateful this morning to have with us Wendy Burton from Communities Foundation of Texas. CFT plays a huge role in the North Texas philanthropic community. They identify and support donors. They bring experts in to look at problems facing our community, and they make grants to nonprofits that are working on those problems. In terms of things that they do that you've seen, CFT is behind North Texas Giving Day, which was a couple of weeks ago, and I know you've heard about that a couple of times from this podium. And they've been heavily involved in the response to the pandemic, which I'll let Wendy speak to in more depth. At CFT, Wendy is the Senior Director of Community Philanthropy. She oversees all the organization's grant-making efforts, and since 2012, she's led the focus on economic security for working families. Wendy received the 2018 President's Award from the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce and was named Volunteer of the Year in that same year by the Irving Family YMCA. Wendy lives in Irving with her husband and 3 sons and has a bachelor's degree from Doane University in Nebraska. So with that, thank you for being here, Wendy.
Well, I guess I'll say good morning, Lake Highlands. I have some slides, I think. If we're going to, are we waiting for those to come up? So I am really excited to be here today to talk to you about something that I am probably the most proud thing that I've ever been able to work on, which is a thing that we call North Texas Cares. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a history lesson to set you up so you can see how we got to this point. So my last day in my office was March 17th, and I haven't been back there since, except for a few times to pick up some things. And that was the day that my phone began to blow up from all of the other foundations in town, because they were getting calls from all the nonprofits in town about something called the coronavirus and what was going to happen and shutting down. And they were canceling events, and people were losing fundraising, and donors were starting to, pull away grants or cancel grants, and everyone was panicking. And I remember saying to several of my friends, why don't we get a call up by Friday? Let's get a group call. Let's talk about what we want to do as a group of foundations. It was myself and the United Way and the Dallas Foundation and Reese Jones and the Meadows Foundation. And as we began to spread word that we were going to have this call, I got a call from several corporate foundations. They've sent it to all their network. By Friday, we had 90 funders on a shared phone call, on an Uber call, to talk about what are we going to do collectively. And out of that Friday phone call, the decision was that we would launch a website with a common application to do emergency grant funding to support the coronavirus. Could you switch to the next slide for me? And out of that, so we launched North Texas Cares. We decided on a Friday and what we were going to do. The website opened on Monday with an application. Now, if you ever have worked with any funders or foundations, to get 2 or 3 foundations to agree on the time of day is a modern miracle. And to get us to agree on what we should put in an application form, what questions we should ask, is even more tricky. But we managed to get this up. So what North Texas Cares launched in early March, about mid-March. It was 32 named partner funders, and there are about another 50 that were not named funders, but who actively have participated all the way through. So there's been about 80 of us. It is a funder collaboration. It's not pooled funding. We don't all put our money into a big pot. We each share an application. So what it means is for all the nonprofits, they had to apply to one place, fill out one application, and 80 funders saw it. And what ended up happening, we left it open. We ran it from March to the end of July. We received over 1,200 applications. And it was intended for organizations who had been impacted by COVID, who were experiencing COVID, and to try to push emergency funding out as fast as we can. Could you switch to the next slide? And how it works is that as funders looked at, oh, I'm sorry, can you skip? So here was just really quickly, this was the criteria that we had in our application. It was basically emergency funding. We knew that schools were starting to shut down, so supporting distance learning. And then anything, because at the same time, in the middle of all this, we had the George Floyd killings and all the protests, we realized we needed to put up some information and allow funding for those who are trying to work to address racial disparities, especially those communities, because we were starting to see about May, the communities in Dallas-Fort Worth, as you all have seen the data on, that are negatively impacted by coronavirus, and it's mostly communities of color that have been historically underrepresented and have less access to healthcare, healthy foods, and so on. So could you go to the next slide, please? So we received 1,250 applications over the period of time that the first round was open. Out of that group, 689 nonprofits received grants. Now, how it worked is that funders could all fund it our own way. So it was basically a big pool of applications. You could reach in, pick out the ones you want, go back to your committees, your boards, and make your grant. So a nonprofit could receive 1 or more grants from any funder. Which, as an example, I looked at Family Compass. Michael shared with me you guys' history and involvement with Family Compass, which is a wonderful organization. They received 5 grants from North Texas Cares for about a total of $120,000. We managed to push out, yeah, I was really excited about that. We actually pushed out $40.3 million from March to July as a group of funders. We served over 100 different communities. We had funders as far north as up near the Oklahoma line, near Texoma, Ellis County, east, west. We were giving grants in Parker County, all around Denton, all around the area. So if you could go to the next one. We know that the ask was over $104 million in requests, and we were only able to do 40 million. So we have on our website, there actually is a North Texas Cares website that you could go to, and on it in the FAQ is we actually put a Google map, and if you expand that out, it actually will show you each of those little blue dots actually has a name of each of the organizations who got a grant. And it's huge. We actually did we had some funding that asked us to fund down in Austin. So there's grants all over the entire North and Central Texas area. And it was really exciting to see really how much we were able to get money broadly across the community. I don't think there's any part or any zip code in Dallas County that did not get grants and did not get support from this effort. Next slide, please. So I wanted to just show you a little bit of kind of where the requests had come in. When we were getting requests, we divided them into Dallas and Tarrant County because we had so many funders and so many grants, and 1,200 grants is a lot to read and process. We actually ended up and we had so many funders on both. So we kind of were like the East versus the West. So Dallas included anybody from Collin County, Denton, Grayson County, Hunt County, kind of the eastern side, and then Tarrant County was Bosque, Erath Hill, Jackhorn, some of the rural counties plus Tarrant County. And we actually had funders, when you participated in this, you would sit in a biweekly phone call. And so we had 2 phone calls. Tarrant County had their own call, then we had one for everybody. And we would talk about grants and we would raise questions. And so this is how the grants kind of broke out. We had the biggest one, of course, was access to food. That was always the one that people wanted, which is not a surprise. And then providing general support and engagement. We asked a lot of funders to just give operating grants, which is basically just give the nonprofit money and let them decide how they want to spend it and not be tied to a lot of restrictions. There's a lot of safety for high risk. That would be PPE. And then the other thing, emergency financial assistance. But the other thing which we were starting to see a lot of funding for was for family violence and safety in the home, which we know Family Compass, I'm sure you've all have heard that when people are locked down and they can't get away, incidents of child abuse, spousal abuse, partner abuse go up. And so we began to see a lot more of those requests. And fortunately, funders stepped up to really support those. So this is kind of how the needs broke out. And then if you go to the next slide. So this is within the Dallas region. We received the most money, which is not a surprise. There's the most nonprofits within Dallas, followed closely by Fort Worth, Plano, Denton. There was a few in Austin, and then down to Louisville and Austin. And then the next slide. So this works. So and then these are just an idea of just some of the largest organizations. So of course, North Texas Food Bank, Catholic Charities Fort Worth, which are 2 of the largest organizations in both of their counties. UT Southwestern, the Tarrant Area Food Bank, and then a fund that we have at CFT called Get Shift Done. If you all haven't heard about that, and they're still fundraising for this. So Get Shift Done was started by an entrepreneur named Patrick Brandt. He came to us with an idea that he's got a technology platform that connects people to jobs. And so what he actually did is created a philanthropic fund that we hold at CFT that actually pays displaced workers from the service industry to go work in nonprofits. And they get paid a stipend. So instead of being on unemployment or not being able to get unemployment or not getting sufficient, they actually are making a living wage job they've been working at the North Texas Food Bank, Wilkinson Center, Minnie's Pantry, a lot of the food pantries doing, food distribution and packing. A lot of the nonprofits, when this happened, lost volunteers. Most of their volunteers in many cases are people who are retirees or not working and were not going to show up, or they had to not have volunteers come in because they needed to put their safety mechanisms in place and they didn't have all the PPE. Get Shift Done workers were mostly displaced restaurant workers, and they've been working and it's been phenomenal. And they're actually trying to raise more money now to continue this, or they're going to have to start letting people go, which is really unfortunate. And we're really, really proud of the work that they've been able to do. The nonprofits actually say they're the best workers they've ever had because they work hard, they show up on time, they know how to get stuff done, they're young and strong, they don't want them to go. So we appreciate that. Next one. So this all worked so well for the first round that we thought, well, let's just do that again. So we got together over the summer and had a series of conversations, decided that we would launch North Texas Cares 2.0. And this has worked incredibly well. What was really exciting for us in the first round was that we were exposed through this process to nonprofits that we'd never heard of in communities that we'd always wanted to serve, but we didn't have a relationship there, or they didn't know how to reach us. North Texas Cares really became much more equitable for big nonprofits, tiny nonprofits to get in front of funders that they probably wouldn't have. So we got to know a whole lot of communities and nonprofits and missions that we had not been familiar with. But the other side was, so did the nonprofits. I have had so many small agencies call me and go, I just got a grant from someone I've never heard of. And I'm so excited. And hopefully that relationship will continue to spur philanthropy. So because it was so popular, we decided that we were now going to pivot to look at our next round. It actually ends today. And we've had 300 applications submitted to date, and most nonprofits like to wait till the last minute. So we might have another 700 turned in by 5 o'clock this afternoon. And this is intended to provide support for organizations. Again, they have to be 501c3s, and we want to align with state priorities. Can you please? And instead of our original 32, we actually kept most of our partner funders stayed, but we added about 4 or 5 more. So the Mavericks Foundation has joined us. We've had a few other corporate foundations who've joined us. We're incredibly excited about this. This one, I know this is really hard to read, but we'll send this out. So we're really focused in this round around more COVID response and recovery. We are now moving into the next phase. Like, we've all kind of settled in, so we're not in the lockdown, but we need to try to figure out how do we support organizations and the community as we open forward. So there's still a huge need for health, access to testing, addressing health disparities. And then there's a large focus in this application on issues around economic security. How are we going to connect all the displaced workers into jobs? Is it reskilling, retooling, upskilling, getting people connected, providing supportive services? We were just talking at my table before I stood up about childcare. A lot of childcare centers are not open right now because they need to social distance. Childcare workers have been displaced. For people to go back to work, though, they've got to have a safe place to put their kids. And with school opening, I think that will help. And certainly housing. There's been a lot of news, and will continue to be a lot of news about the amount of evictions. Now that the moratoriums are lifting, without additional assistance, we will probably see a lot more people displaced and homeless, which is really frightening. And then there's issues around safety and well-being. You'll notice personal safety from violence in the home. We still really feel like, organizations like Family Compass and Genesis and the Family Place and those that provide support against violence in the home are going to continue to need a lot more support going forward. Certainly public safety issues. We're looking to support education, especially as schools are coming back online, support for distance learning, and support for parents and teachers. And then, as well as we've got we've been asked by even nonprofits for assistance in supporting social justice. A lot of agencies are coming to us saying, help us think about how we think about race and equity. How, we don't know what we need to do to think about this for ourselves, to that we're equitable in our practices. And so we've been asked to look at those kinds of applications as well, to help nonprofits. So nonprofits are wanting to know about how are they serving the community as best that they can. Could you please switch? And so the last thing I wanted to, so that'll close this week. We'll let you know kind of how that goes. We'll give you guys a follow-up. I'm hoping Family Compass applies again. We were really excited to have them apply the first time. So I wanted to kind of close with some things that I usually give, a talk that I give to other funders. I've given this to some corporate funders as well. But, what we like to think about is when it's to think about disaster funding. So for those of you who may have donor advised funds, or who maybe have your own family foundation or tend to give philanthropically, we want to kind of plant some seeds where we can, and how to think about funding for disasters. So it's really when we have a tornado or a hurricane or a big crisis, there's a huge rush. People are so generous, especially in North Texas, to give money right away to help. But what people don't often understand is that organizations like the Red Cross and those emergency responders, they can only serve for so long, and they can only spend so much money, and then they're done. Their mission is not long-term recovery, it's immediate response, which is so critical. But what's really needed, and often when the cameras turn off, is the long-term recovery. I just drove a few weeks ago up through the Walnut Hill area. There are still homes with blue tarps on them from the tornado last October that haven't been rebuilt. There's still schools that are down. And so there's still a need even from October. There are still people who are still suffering and trying to recover. I actually got a call last week from a woman in Lake Charles, Louisiana, looking for help for the residents in her mobile home park from Hurricane Laura. They still hadn't had debris removed. And they were also, that was like 2 hurricanes ago. So we managed to connect her in with some folks, but it says to me that there's a need to keep an eye on the long game. You got to play the long game in disasters. We ask that people, if you're making grants, if you have a regular grant that you give to a nonprofit every December, that you keep those commitments. Nonprofits right now are counting on that. They've lost their ability to fundraise. They've had to cancel fundraisers. They've lost tons of money. And the ability to count on regular annual donations is something that's going to help them make payroll and be able to continue their mission. We also ask that people consider unrestricted and operating grants. Just give them, trust them. If you love a nonprofit and love their mission, do you trust them enough to make the right decisions with the money that you give them and let them decide where they need it? Can they deploy it wherever it needs to be? We ask that people consider sponsorship. So if you were if they were going to have a golf tournament and suddenly they have to cancel and you were going to, be a sponsor, continue holding that sponsorship, because even if they don't have it, they could still, that was a fundraiser for them. Certainly there's coronavirus response funds. We have one, the United Way has one, the Dallas Foundation has one, lots of foundations have them. If you don't know where to put your money, the money that we raised in our fund was used to fund our North Texas CARES applications. We funded about $1.7 million in coronavirus grants with the funds that we raised philanthropically from donors. We always suggest purchasing and donating PPE to your favorite nonprofit. You'd be surprised at how hard it is for nonprofits to get it. It is an expense they did not budget or plan for. And when they're running pretty lean anyway, and now you've got to buy cleaning supplies and masks and gloves and plexiglass dividers, they often don't know where they're going to get the money from. And so we've asked people, if you don't know what to do, an Amazon Smiles list and put some paper masks on it and have it shipped to them is a great idea. And then there's some best practices in philanthropy, considering grants. We love collaborative funding opportunities. We always welcome that. Additional grants, if you ever want to do, if you feel like you can. And then certainly determine any approaches that you can to ensure that grant making, what we try to recommend to folks is to nonprofits in particular and to other funders, is that the voice of the community, the people who are impacted, whether it's from a disaster, that they tell you what they need. People know what they need, that we listen to them and not just assume that we know what they need and come in and try to save them. So that is North Texas Cares 2.0. And I would be happy to take any questions or answer any follow-up anything. Yes, sir.
I noticed that Southwestern and Parkland were like 3 and 4 on the list of things. What were their needs?
They were looking at, their funding was around testing, mobile testing, supporting testing. We saw a lot of the hospital foundations in particular spin up fundraising, and mostly it was to get their free testing up and running. Mobile testing in particular. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the long game. Do you provide, does your organization provide training for the people that are applying for funds, whether they get it or not, for, let's say, nonprofit management, just help them so that they can continue in that long game?
We do, and we do provide some capacity building support. We also will refer them to other organizations such as the Center for Nonprofit Management that also provides nonprofit capacity building, such as how to develop their board, looking at their finances. We actually are launching this fall some specific capacity building targeted to nonprofits that are impacted by COVID. They'll have the chance to opt in. It's done through an organization that pulls market leaders and volunteers from kind of virtually, if they need help with a fundraising plan or rethinking their marketing strategy or whatever it is, and they can work virtually with a coach who will help them develop some plans. And we'll partner in that with the Lyda Hill Philanthropies and with the Dallas Foundation. The 3 of us are going to collaborate on that and bring that into town to offer that. We'd like to try to offer as much what we call capacity building as we can. Sometimes, a nonprofit, they always need cash, but sometimes paying for a strategic plan, paying for a development plan, paying for an audit is something that they don't have money out of pocket, but they won't spend money on themselves, but it's invaluable. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I have one. So obviously, a lot of us have exposure to CFT through North Texas Giving Day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just amazing when you see the amount of funds that are committed on that day. But one thing I've always asked is, in terms of your experience with that event, do you, in your opinion, do the dollars go to the right? Do we normally find the right places to put that money? And the reason I ask is SPCA is like number 2, a lot of the cases under North Texas Food Bank. And in priority of needs, especially in 2020, yes, pets are important, but yeah, I'm still like, is that where those funds really?
Well,
need to go?
the trick with North Texas Giving Day is that we don't get to pick who the money goes to.
Right.
The donors themselves, the people who don't volunteer. And so I got to tell you, the people who love their pets really love their animals. So as much as
$3.
yeah, I got two big ones myself. So yeah. So, I wish, if I was given the choice, I might not always put things in that order, but it's where people have the priority. It's what I like about North Texas Giving Day and what I appreciate. And also it's like with North Texas Cares is, for a tiny nonprofit that doesn't have development staff that may be volunteer run, they have just as much of an opportunity to raise money on North Texas Giving Day as they did as giving money through North Texas Cares. North Texas Cares application for the first round took them about 10 minutes to fill out. I mean, most of it was their demographic, like who are you and what's your address and what's your email, and then give us a few sentences on what you need and what you're going to spend the money for and how much you need. North Texas Giving Day is a very easy process for those tiny nonprofits. It's a game changer. And I hear over and over and over again from nonprofits, we raised $5,000 that we would have never been able to raise. We didn't have to rent a room, hire a caterer, hire a band. All we did was send some emails and people gave to us. And the other thing is people find them and give them, if you care about an issue, you can research it on Giving Day and find organizations you've never had. So we always are seeing that. So I'm with you. There's a lot of those that you can see, those that have a really good social media machine who are able to get out, drive a lot of donors, and people love their dogs and cats. But I think it's really, what I do like is that it is an equalizer, that even a tiny nonprofit can still make some money. Yes, sir.
So on that subject, about how much was the match for this year?
I'm not the one to ask. I have not heard that. It was smaller because the donated dollars were down, and we ended up blowing past our goal, and we made $58.8 million in a day, which was crazy. So yeah, it was crazy. We were watching the numbers go up. It's like, wow. And we were surprised because we'd also had a giving day with the Mavericks and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys was the Cowboys, not the Mavericks. The Cowboys and the United Way in May, and made about 30 million. And so we were surprised that not even 4 months later, we would turn around and make almost $60 million. It just speaks to the generosity of this community. So the match was less than we thought, but we have made it easy for folks if you want to cover their fees, so that they get more match and it's not taken out because of the fees that we have to charge, then we can do that. Yes, sir.
I have a crystal ball question, and if you don't know that.
I will do the best I can.
So we saw once the pandemic hit, a lot of focus around kids and food insecurity.
Yes.
Cafe Momentum did a partnership up here to provide meals for our Richardson schools. Now that schools are coming back online, y'all have any anticipation, is that need going to continue at that level? Are you expecting there to be suddenly there be a gap because everyone thinks schools have it handled now?
I'm worried there'll be a gap.
Sorry,
Go
could you
ahead.
repeat the question?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. The question was, there was a lot of food insecurity around at the beginning of the pandemic because schools had closed. And so we saw a lot of food drives, and the concern is, will there continue to be, because the schools are now open, will there be a continuation of, will the need for food continue, or will there be a gap? I am afraid there'll be a gap. I don't think the need for food insecurity has gone away. We were food insecure as a community before the pandemic. We are going to be deeper in the food insecurity as it goes on. I think as we look at the amount, I don't think we're done with the layoffs and the people who have been displaced. People are not going back to work as fast as we thought. There were going to be small businesses that I think I think there's more to come. And I don't think if you were a worker who was a service worker, which was the majority of people who worked in Dallas County, that was the largest employer in hospitality or restaurants, those jobs may not come back anytime soon, which means we may see people who are having to make choices between paying rent to keep a roof over their head and their children and paying for food. So I don't think food insecurity is going to go away. I'm really kind of holding my breath and crossing my fingers and saying my prayers that we can, that we start to see that there's more assistance around the rental assistance and the rent moratorium continues so that we do not see an increase in homelessness. And that we have the ability to see, God willing, that Congress will put out more funding to support these displaced workers. You know, not that losing that additional unemployment is really hurting this community in particular. And it's going to continue to just get worse and before it gets better, I'm afraid. So I think, you know, the good thing is with schools back in session and with the schools continuing their own food drives, that does help. But if you're a senior, you're not going to get food from a school. And we have a ton of seniors. A lot of the folks who were, when we saw the food that came through North Texas Cares, was in particular to support families with children and seniors. So VNA visiting nurses has turned themselves inside out to do amazing work. And they at one point had a 900-person wait list and were moving them off as fast as they could. And that doesn't, and there's still probably the county and the city probably has another, I don't know, thousands of seniors who need meals delivered to them. So I'm just, you know, say your prayers, guys, because I just think there's more to come. And if we have another spike, ooh, so yeah, that's why these you guys are doing. I'm proud of y'all for wearing your mask because I got my CFT branded one right here. So any other questions? Yes, sir.
So not to get off in the weeds, but the last slide, I think you referenced some collaborative grants. And I'm curious because there are some local nonprofits that apply to us each year and we do what we can. Often we don't have as much as they would like.
Of course.
Probably that's always the case. But were you suggesting that perhaps if someone needed $10,000, just use the typical thing we would get, and we only have 5 because we want to help some other people, you guys might with us 5 and 5 or whatever. Is that what you were referencing in this?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we often will work, like it could be where we go with other funders to come in on something. So this capacity building grant that we're looking at doing, when we looked at the price tag, we went to 2 other funders and said, you want to split it? So that our money can all go further. Because if it's 250,000, but I only have to spend 80, then I got more money to spend on other things, and so do you. And it might be that I would say you might want to offer like a challenge grant opportunity, and then you can approach other funders or other folks to say, hey, we'll give you 5 if you can raise a matching 5, or we're doing a matching grant opportunity to see if that we can get them to 10 because that's what they've asked for. So there's lots of ways to get creative around how to do some collaborative funding and to raise additional money. Any other questions? Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Wendy. Before you get too far away, since we won't shake hands, I've got a little parting gift. Just a token of our appreciation from the Exchange Club, and there's an additional add-on component that turns that into a koozie if you're interested. So coffee or cold beverage of choice. But thank you so much for being here. It was really great to kind of hear what y'all do, and it's inspiring to hear and to see the evidence of people who have means reaching out and taking care of those who don't in these times in particular. Our club has benefited from that. And it's great to see, especially with North Texas Giving Day and the CARES program, that y'all are experiencing that as well, and that we are getting much needed funds into the hands of those in need this year in particular. So thank you very much for being here. I know it's an early morning, but we were very glad to have you here on our first day back. My
first in-person event.
Well, we appreciate it very much. Not much in the way of closing remarks or announcements. I'll say again, it's great to see everyone. We're going to keep rolling along with this program, this plan weekly, back on the regular Friday routine. We'll have an announcement coming up if we do transition back to that kind of third Thursday evening program option. But for now, we're going to plan on Friday mornings. Next week we're still buttoning down. Okay. 2 weeks from today, we've got our District 114 candidate forum. That's right. Put that on the calendars. So Mr. Turner and Ms. Del Rosa will be here for a little candidate forum. Don't miss that. That's an interesting race. So plan on being here for that. And then we've got student awards and police and fire coming up later in the month after that. Don't miss those programs. Those are always fun. Don't forget tomorrow, October 3rd, noon to 10, OHB. 10 to 10 for the volunteers. Yes. Yes. Sign up, then show up. Donate. We need all the help we can get, make it a successful event. And we don't have our singer here, but we have to sing us out. So, Brent. Country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of thy pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring.